Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Day After Podcast, where we discuss things we've just seen, listened to, or read. I'm here with Haley.
Hello!
And today we're tackling the 1988 manga-turned-anime Parasyte, specifically spelled with a Y, by mangaka Hitoshi Iwaki. Now, I would like to do something a tad bit different, if that's okay.
Okay.
Normally, this is spoilers be damned on our show, but for the first 2 or 3 minutes, I would like to do a spoiler-free buyer's guide.
Oh, okay.
Just to kind of see, because a lot of people, I feel, like me, I hope, were very on the fence. They're like, that seems like incredibly my cup of tea, but is it, worth my time? Because it does seem like a very dry show at times.
I don't know if dry is the right word, but I get what you're saying.
Very grounded in reality, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Because I did, as an American audience, I do feel kind of bad about this. I did struggle to keep the character models apart at times.
I didn't really.
Yeah, I do get better. It's a muscle I didn't have.
Yeah.
This show really does a good job avoiding the, guess which one's the main character based on their hair color?
Yeah, and it's, but it does have the standard issue, the most boring one is the anime protagonist. At least it's not a harem where all the girls are like gigantic tits and everything. So I will go ahead and say it. If you like body horror, you're gonna like this.
This is, that's what drew me to it is, I'm a fan of body horror when it's done well. It really freaks me out, and it's hard to come across that kind of stuff. This is, it frequently appears on, if you're interested in that, most violent anime list.
Yeah, I could see that. Those of you who don't like body horror, I recommend, number one, watching it with somebody who does like body horror, but also giving it a shot anyway, because I don't like body horror. In fact, I kind of go out of my way to avoid it. And there's stuff in here for you.
It's very thematic. My first super gory anime I watched was Blood Sea, which was not a great show. Very, very violent. This is most of that violence with context. And
yeah, I spent a lot of this show expecting it to adhere to the kind of normal anime tropes, like this guy was going to be super boring until a slice of God comes down to bestow of him.
God, yeah.
And the girl's going to be super perky, and her boobs are going to bounce every third frame. And that's not what this is. And so it doesn't adhere to the shonen tropes either of, just being action with no plot, action with no character. Yeah, it's kind of what I like from an anime, in that there's not a lot of tropes here.
All right, we will go ahead and close the door on spoiler-free territory. If you would like to watch this, I highly recommend 24 episodes. I had a good time.
They go down pretty easy, too.
They do go down pretty easy. It's very quick. This is, how do you want to start?
I have no idea. This is your show, mate.
Okay.
Okay.
This is, this is the parasite in a guy's arm. It tries to, when it tries to establish new fans or like a name for itself in the pantheon of anime, it has to kind of do so in a high concept way, because that is the biggest standout point in this for people that are just going in, is that is a weird concept.
Yeah, and so it is high concept, but again, this kind of tricks you into thinking that that's all it has to offer. I assumed this was going to be some big, like, it was going to be a half action movie and half biology paper of how, like, what does it mean to be human, and how are our cells different? How do these two things mesh? Why are some parasites doing things one way and another parasites doing the other? What is it? And you definitely get the what does it mean to be human, but it's on a very mental and psyche level, and in a way that has very little to do with biology.
It's definitely a very interesting way to, because this is three thirds that mesh pretty well. It's biology, it's
horror aesthetic,
psychology, or philosophy is the word I was thinking of.
And Milo's frowning.
It's philosophy, biology, and just straight up fun body horror. I paused the show a couple times to go get a drink or go to the bathroom. When I came back, I'm like, damn, this is a rad show.
Yeah, and again, the horror aspect and the body horror doesn't do it for me. It does ask interesting questions, and it does have something to say, which I was really, really worried it wasn't going to for a while. Because I essentially heard Miki say something like the phrase of, what does it actually mean to be human? I'm like, oh, Jesus, fuck.
We're gonna fuck it. Okay, there's a, in the same vein as like the stanky memes that are like, what if the real friends were the people we met along the way? But in the same vein, it's kind of hokey to say, what if humans were bad the whole time? That's so played out. It's the twist ending of The Happening.
Yeah, and I'm so glad it wasn't Migi gaining a conscience or like, these two forming like a repertoire and forming like this kick-ass like, I don't know, Sakura and Kyo duo. As they fight crime and fight evil because these two are the good ones. No, Migi's a shithead, like literally the entire time.
Not even like a God love him shithead. He's just a very flat. He's what if people took Sheldon from Big Bang Theory as flat and if they weren't trying to be funny.
Yeah.
That's how a person who has flat, no affect. It's not a Spock gag. It just really has no idea how to identify with these things.
Yeah, and the creator never plays Migi off for laughs. He never plays his inhumanity or his straight robotness off for laughs, which I do really appreciate. This isn't really a show you laugh at, I would say.
No, just to get you in past the 3 episodes, if you're on the fence, there is one gag where it's like, hey, Shinichi, I've never seen a dick before. I'm gonna see if I can get it hard.
Yeah, and it's to get you familiar with the concept. But this does not rely on gags. It does not rely on cute little repertoire moments between these two. These two don't really like each other and must find a way to coexist. And doing that, they ask themselves and each other really, really poignant questions.
I do like the philosophy, but biologically, it's difficult to. Not that it's difficult. This movie knows it can get bogged down if you ask too many biological questions about the parasites.
Yes, so they kind of ignore it.
Because, so there's a couple things that they ignore is that you're in Spoiler Town now, so they mostly disappear off the radar in the final episode.
Yeah.
But also, you run into, I think, 2 different people who, for whatever reason, the show does not seem at all interested in explaining this at all, can just sense that a parasite is nearby.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're sensing, they don't know how they can do it, or why they can do it, but they can do it.
Yeah, and again, the show doesn't really... Again, it's very much like it does with Migi. It's like, parasites exist, deal with it. These people who can sense parasites exist, deal with it. One of these, Tamara Reiko parasites starts questioning... do we really need to eat humans? Is it better to adapt and survive with them? Why is she the only one that happens to? Deal with it.
I think maybe as a teacher, because she does amalgamate into a teacher.
Well, and she is an infant.
Yeah, well, I think at one point, part of what tethers her to humanity is this foil to Shinichi at some point is she just to see if she could. She tried having a baby in her human body.
Yes.
And she's like, whoa, okay, I'm having a baby, but it's a human baby.
Yeah, and it's fully human, and she met up with this parasite they don't really care about. While we're on the topic of females, if I may move on.
Yeah.
I know you like her, I know you think she's cute. Good God, for like 80% of the show is Satomi boring as fuck.
She's not... Okay, she's not...
She's boring.
She may be a little boring. Okay, look,
she's constantly in the side ground just staring at Shinichi and thinking things.
Just because she has cute moments and I like her smile and anyway, she does spend a lot of the plot out on the side.
And saying the same things like, are you really Shinichi-kun? And, oh, I have to catch up with you and da-da-da. I really, really respect her relationship with Shinichi. And I like the two of them together. Her as her own character does not do a whole lot.
So consider this is gonna seem really kind of nitpicky, hypothetical, but
I'm not saying you did. Go ahead.
Okay. Consider the character Misa in Death Note.
Okay.
Now, when somebody might say she is a weird character to implant 4 volumes into a 12-volume series, why? Again, the creators of that show don't seem to be interested. They're like, who cares? She has Death Note powers. Figure it out.
Well, but Misa does stuff.
Yeah, that was the second half of my argument.
Yeah.
Is she is forced by this power, but when she is a love interest, it's hard for her to be interesting when we are asking such really interesting philosophical and biological questions on Shinichi's side.
And I don't really know what argument I'm trying to say here. I'm not saying that Satomi needed more time or that she needed to impact the plot more. I'm just saying, for the amount of screen time she does have, she seems to be doing the same thing all the time.
It does feel a little bit like spinning your wheels. There are more interesting characters like Reiko.
Yeah, and I feel like you can develop her relationship with Shinichi without having her just kind of floating in his periphery constantly.
Yeah, yeah. When she comes back into focus in the final episode, that is a cool, interesting payoff. But I understand, it's either gonna be like a pressed for time and space problem, or there would have been a weird tonal problem if you try to keep going back to her situation.
Yeah, well, and when they finally sleep together, that's Shinichi's choice to, okay, I'm going to prioritize this girl. But that says way more about him than it does about her, because she didn't change.
No, she doesn't have to change. In fact, some people really don't prefer her. They prefer Kana, who...
Yeah, Kana was hands down probably the most surprising death of the show.
Yes, so this just an aside, this anime series knows how to off people and get their money's worth.
And completely shock you while doing so.
And it's interesting that Kana's death is one of the most poignant in episode 12 or 13 because it feels like before you know that she's not long for this world, you're like, you are, what is it, yandere?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for
She's
sure.
Very much like I can sense you. That means we're lovers. No, it means I have an alien inside me.
Yes, well, and Shinichi had warned her several times, stop following me, do not get involved in this, you are going to die.
And it's really respectful of the internal logic of the show that she gets off in episode 12. It's like, I told you repeatedly not to come for me.
Right, and this is how I wish deaths were handled in Game of Thrones. Where the deaths surprise you, but like after a while you're just like, oh well, we got to know that character. It's time for that person to die. No, Kanas comes out of nowhere.
I definitely did not feel like they picked Kana's name out of a hat.
No.
There's one thing the show does really well. It's getting emotional weight out of their deaths. That's really good.
Yes. Well, emotional weight out of everything.
Yeah, pretty much everything. The mom in episode 7.
Oh God.
That blew me away when, like, okay, mom's dead, and then in the next episode I get stabbed, and okay, what the fuck's going on now?
Yeah, and Migi goes in and repairs his heart, and Shinichi's life and hair changes forever.
By the way, if you're that's a nice animation trick. They do slightly change his animation, his hair style.
Yeah, well, yeah, and his whole animation, and where by the end he's like a mix of the two, which is really cool.
That's really nice. I have more Death Note things. Death Note next year. Just a fun thing if you're in the fan base. They call the thing that they use to fix the hole in his heart Migi-chlorians.
I love it.
I love it. Yeah, it's just a fun little pet nickname.
And it's not like, oh, Migi has this new power and it goes because it's a Deus Ex Machina and we need Shinichi to live. No, they're dealing with that for a while.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, because Shinichi's whole
that's definitely
body changes.
A weaker anime or manga in this case, it would have felt like that was a I wish I could have looked up how many volumes this ran for in the manga, but that seemed like it could have been a really cheap. We have to end this book 1 on a cliffhanger, and I'll figure it out later. But they are continuously referencing that, and that's really nice.
Yeah.
There are really good scenes. Not even deaths. There are revelations that change the thing. Like when they have, let's talk about it. I don't know why I'm the big one that has to talk about this like it's an issue at all, but there are this is a perfect foil to Death Note the anime.
Okay.
Not just because there's a lot of similar scenes.
There's a similar gravitas to it.
Yes. Will the public find out about this? How am I able to find people to hide myself from the situation where the humans don't quite know the rules of this new thing?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant by this anime doesn't really adhere to tropes. This anime, every single episode, it's taking itself dead seriously. And if you can buy into that, if you can follow it along there, it ends up being really, really cool.
And I appreciate the logic, because when you meet the most badass, the final boss of this series...
Godo? He's freaking scary.
When you first meet him, he's at 60% capacity.
Yeah, he's Miki first.
The point is, he's 60% capacity, and if the show knows in its internal logic that run is the proper thing to do, we will just spend an action scene running.
Yes, yeah. Well, okay, so we figure out that this guy has multiple parasites in him, and they run for a while, and Miki's finally like, I got an idea, let's go to the forest, because he can't use his vines in there. And they go to the forest, chop his head off, and then he morphs into this new thing, and then you're like,
Yeah, we fucked it. I have one last kind of like parting thought that I want to talk before we go into final, because I feel like we're spinning. you might get turned off by the soundtrack.
I disagree. I love the soundtrack.
Okay, I do really love some people will get turned off by the dubstep.
Oh,
Well, it's really, when you know that they do have these are the badass tracks. You play this when badass shit's going down. When he's having an emotional moment.
Yeah.
The emotional tracks don't suck. They actually are pretty decent. But when they want to hit hard that some shit's going down, you're about to see some shit, they get you excited, and that's fun. Especially in a world where you can get bogged down by philosophy and biology.
But it fits with the setting because the dubstep and the music, it's all very unsettling. And this idea of, these creepy monsters with blades for heads can infect people's bodies and take over the government, that's unsettling. So it always fits.
Yeah.
In my mind.
Overall thoughts for you?
Again, I expected to hate this. I was like, oh, I love my husband and I'll do what he wants. I don't like body horror. I didn't find the whole head exploding and blade lashing. I didn't find that interesting. This does have really interesting stuff to say. I will say it does get up its own ass sometimes. But overall I had a good time. I don't know that I'd watch it again, but there's some interesting stuff going on.
I would definitely watch this by myself at a later date. I didn't want this to be super long because we could just be waxing poetic about how much it gets up its own ass, and I think that people have done that more earlier and better. But it is not just the token action movie, even though you fucking see many people get cut in half.
Yes.
It's a really fun watch if you're into that. That has been 2000, and I don't remember when that came out. Shit, but that has been Parasyte with a Y. Join us in a week for something else. Maybe something extremely similar.
Or extremely different.